Hello kind people of YouTube and welcome back to another video. This is going to be a relatively short one. It hasn't been the most exciting news day, but I did find a few stories worth talking about. Before I start, just briefly, I promised I would do a stream this weekend. That didn't work out. Unfortunately, I only had time earlier today. Tried to go live, but it turns out after 5 minutes, only one person had joined the stream. I would have continued if I had had topics to talk about, but this was supposed to be a question and answer stream, so can't really do that with just one person. I have been alerted after to the fact that apparently, once again, YouTube was not sending out notifications to my subscribers. People just didn't realize that I went live in the first place. So in the future, when I want to do streams, I will schedule them at least a day in advance. And I will tell you guys about them in my videos leading up to them, so you can make sure to set up a notification for it manually, so you don't miss when I actually go live. This has been very messy for a while now. I've tried streaming multiple times the last couple days, and only once it properly worked out. But I definitely want to commit to streaming more frequently. I think it's the best opportunity to really deal with some of the comments you guys have been leaving and responding to your questions. So I'm gonna try to aim for streaming at least once a week. I just have to figure out how to best do it in a way that you guys actually manage to catch my streams. But let's jump into the video and let's look at the first topic first. And it's more bad news for Tron because their Accelerator competition is under massive scrutiny and is facing a lot of controversy. So let's take a look at this whole situation. I'm just going to read out a big chunk of this article and then we'll take a look. Tron's Accelerator competition closed on January 4th with $1 million in prize money to be won, but now dApp developers are up in arms if the outpouring of complaints on the Discord channel are anything to go by. Tron, a dApp platform that is now ranked the 9th most valuable by market cap, bought pioneering peer-to-peer file-sharing application BitTorrent in July last year. The project is led by Justin Sun and has recently been gaining traction both in terms of adoption and price. But all may not be what it seems at first glance, say its many doubters. It stands accused of pumping the price of its token by luring devs onto its platform, especially from Ethereum, under false pretenses, with its generous competition prices in its Accelerator program. Reddit user 9hill, I assume that's pronounced Phil, is one such critic. He drew attention to the email that has been sent out to entrants changing the rules after the competition had closed. Due to the unexpectedly high volume of competitive projects, we have made some adjustments to the price structure. One of them is to award over 100 projects instead of 56 projects. More details to be announced soon, please stay tuned. And one poster on Discord, Phil, sounds to be the same person, apparently representing a super representative, a node on Tron's delegated proof-of-stake consensus system, complained about the cut in the minimum price size from $5,000 to $1,000, casting doubt on whether the prize money would be fully distributed. So just keep this in mind, they doubled the number of people who would receive prizes, but at the same time they cut the minimum price by 80%, so potentially, even if they award over 100 projects, of the 1 million that they claim to be giving out, they could only give out 100,000 or slightly over 100,000, depending on how they distribute these prices. And here's just the screenshot showing his actual complaint. And the full chart sheet drawn up by Phil, and here we see a lot of potential issues. They allegedly changed the prices after the contest ended. They allowed clones to win, but not the original clone onto Tier X. They allowed contestants to win who didn't meet the criteria, because they were not on the mainnet. They allowed projects that aren't open source to win. The grand winner is a mysterious project with barely any info, and its GitHub has been deleted. They haven't posted a public list of the winners, and some blatant Ponzi games have won prizes. So every single one of these accusations would be serious, but keep in mind here, this is an accusation not against Tron in general, but against this competition in particular. While I have been very critical of Tron, and while I'm going to be very critical of Tron here, we have to keep that in mind here. This is one particular event, one particular competition that is run by Tron, but that is not necessarily representative of Tron as a whole, because this might be run by one person or by a small group of people who otherwise don't have particular responsibilities. But let's continue reading. The author reached out to Justin Sun on Twitter for a comment. Devs complaining on Discord about the Accelerator competition, prices being reduced, clones winning, no public announcement of winners, non-mainnet dApps winning despite rules, any comment. Within 10 minutes he popped up on the Discord, promising to release a statement in an hour. Here's the screenshot, and here we see his comment. Sorry for the inconvenience for our best developers. I'm drafting a feedback to the community now, we'll publish in an hour. Also, we will publish the list of winners before January 14th, 6 PM. So, allegedly the list of winners is coming out tomorrow. Or by tomorrow. The story is unfolding as I write, but to be fair to Justin Sun, he is responding to developer complaints. For example, the Anthill dApp, which is a clone of Shrimp Farm, which in turn is a clone of the original Ethereum game, so a clone of a clone that is also apparently a Ponzi game, is no longer in line for a price. Sun explained, after an internal discussion we decided to cancel the price of Anthill, and my apologies to all developers. Devs were perplexed as to why high-quality dApps were not getting a look in. One dev who has built a remittance dApp called Instant Check, as opposed to yet another game, got nothing. Even an app that had previously been praised by Sun, Tron, and which currently has the largest transaction volumes, apparently only received the bottom price. This is one, and here's just a positive tweet from Tron about Tron. Sun says he's looking into why Tron has been overlooked. A number of dApp developers also say that their submissions had not even been looked at by the Tron team, claiming they were screened out before being seen by judges. One of the judges who posts on Discord as Vincent wrote, I think they did a screening before sending to judges. I didn't see all submitted dApps. The list we got is less than 40 dApp. I think it's for big price. No, I don't have the final results. And this is just more context from the chat. Other devs say their dApps were disqualified with no reason given, such as a dApp called Tron Joy. By way of an explanation for the meltdown of the Accelerator competition, Sun said that the company only has one person working on it and was fixing that. He also admitted he should have visited the Discord channel instead of confining himself to his favorite social media channel, Twitter. Sun is fairly busy on Twitter, where he's found poking fun at Ethereum and co-founder Vitalik in particular, and we don't really need the rest of this, but okay, this is a situation where I'm actually willing to give Tron the benefit of the doubt on most of these things. Now, having one person run a competition with 1 million in prize money, and where apparently over 100 dApps can win prizes, where all of these need to be looked at closely, that is a patently stupid business decision. Okay, I have worked in selection committees, in academic selection committees. I have worked on the selection of individual projects to receive funding. On a much smaller scale, we weren't giving away millions, we were giving away tens of thousands. And we already had I believe about 15 people involved. We had me, we had 2 professors, we had 2 student assistants, and then we had all the judges who were also closely involved in everything else. To deal with a much lower volume of applications and with much lower prize monies. So having one person working on this is utterly perplexing. That is just mismanagement of the highest order. They probably shouldn't have even run such a competition if they weren't able to allocate more manpower to it. Which is weird. If you have 1 million you can give away in prizes, surely you can have more than one person working on this. But okay, let's get past this, because that just seems like the kind of... I feel bad saying this, but Justin Sun seems like he's not very good in managing his money and allocating his money for Tron. There's a lot of money being dumped in projects that seem like odd decisions, and then other things seem like they're underfunded. But okay, let's get past this. That was a bad decision, but that doesn't mean that there's anything fraudulent, that there's any scams going on here. But everything ultimately seems to come down to, if what he's saying here is true, just one person working on all of this. But that doesn't quite excuse the situation that they found themselves in here, where clones are apparently getting better chances of winning prizes than legitimate projects, where rules get changed after the competition is over. And the really unacceptable thing here is, and this is allegedly, I haven't seen an official cause for this, but I'm going by the information in this article. Apparently, the minimum that you could win was lowered. That strikes me as possibly illegal. These people were put in work to enter a competition with the knowledge that the minimum price for a winner would be $5,000. And now that minimum price has been lowered to $1,000. Now, I don't know the details of the situation, but just on paper, this sounds very troubling to me. This is the thing that really strikes me as troubling. Because it's one thing to decide to award more prizes because there's so many good projects being introduced. But you can't then lower the amount of money that these winners get if that amount of money was revealed before, because they only entered the competition under the conditions that that is what they could win. That strikes me. I don't want to accuse them of being fraudulent here, but at the very least as being thoughtless. And this is definitely unacceptable. Now, all of these other accusations here, I think we do need to wait a bit longer before we can make any real statements here, especially since the list of winners has not been revealed yet. But I do hope that they pay out those promised $1 million. Because allegedly, for their last competition, they also didn't pay out what they claimed they would be paying out. And at that point, it just gets very, very misleading. And then you get these accusations of Tron luring developers with false pretenses. And honestly, when you're looking at it like that, it is hard to deny that. It is very hard to deny, because developers are going to go where they can get the support they need. And this is one of those places of support. But when it then turns out that you don't actually stand a chance, or that you will get less money than promised, those are false pretenses. And so a lot of this development on top of Tron happens under a very troubling context, where it might not mean as much as we think it means. The number of dApps being developed on Tron is not as impressive anymore when you realize that most of these are being developed not because Tron is the most appropriate platform, but because when they're developing on Tron, they are hoping to get money directly from Tron. That means that it's not a natural appeal of their technology or of their ecosystem, but instead they are just getting them there with the promise of money dangling in front of their faces. And then it becomes unclear if this promise of money will get any real follow-through when the minimum payout gets reduced by 80%, when apparently not the full amount of money is always being paid out. And there's nothing wrong with supporting developers and incentivizing developers to get to your platform with monetary benefits. That is how you start developing a young platform. But it does become a problem when there are false pretenses, when there are misleading circumstances, and when all the development on your platform seems to be happening for this reason. And I've been critical of Tron for a long time, but progressively I'm looking at it in the worst possible light. There is very little reason to believe that there's much of a long-term future here, in my opinion, at this point. Because there's just so many cracks turning up, and it seems there's so many shady things going on around Tron. And sometimes they later turn out to have not been as shady as we were meant to believe, as we were led to believe. But then the Tron team also does the worst possible job of dealing with these situations. Especially Justin Sun, who usually who instead of properly responding to accusations, usually just wastes his time insulting other projects on Twitter, which is completely childish, which makes no companies are going to get into a cryptocurrency where the lead person behind it acts like a child on Twitter. Why do you think banks are working with the likes of XRP and not with the likes of TRX? Just consider that for a moment. And at this point, so much of Tron seems to be all hype, no follow-through, seems to be a lot of smoke and mirrors, and this just seems to be the latest example of that. Now, I do hope it became clear that I did give them as much of a benefit of the doubt as I could here. I think it's entirely possible that this was just mismanaged, but there are still some things that they really need to respond to. And the accusations here, they appear credible. And we're getting some kind of accusations against Tron almost every day lately, and it's getting a bit ridiculous. And it always has to do with misrepresentation, with overhyping, with lying. And this is the latest, and it's all the same type of action as well. And that is why, even if individual ones of these turn out not to be true, at some point all of these things, they stick. there's just too many cases of misrepresenting information, of distracting from information. Like, that is what Justin Sun is doing when he attacks another network. He's distracting from the issues with their own network. The outright lies about partnerships. There's just so much going on, and all of it comes down to dishonesty. And this is why when people come out now to say that that they cannot trust Justin Sun, I understand why. And that ultimately poisons the entire Tron ecosystem. And even if their technology is valid, even if they are a great platform for dApps, and honestly, I don't know if they are. I'm not a tech person. I'm just going by all these circumstances and what people more intelligent than me and more well-educated than me have told me. But at this point, I think ultimately long-term for Tron to survive, they have to get rid of Justin Sun. Honestly, that's the only way. And this one case here does not seem to be directly related to Justin Sun, but we have to keep in mind, who is the person who decided that only one person would be dealing with this entire competition? That was almost certainly Justin Sun. So we get back to him. Everything ultimately traces back to him. Okay, let's continue. Sorry, I really didn't want to rant about Tron for 15 minutes, and I've been talking about Tron so much the last couple of days, I really just wanted to not talk about them, but then this article comes out, and I just had to. Anyway, apparently Google is blacklisting all ads that contain the hashtag Ethereum, or the word Ethereum. Earlier this week, an Ethereum startup in Serbia discovered that its advertisements on Google were not being shown in certain regions. As the company investigated the case further, it found that the keyword Ethereum has been completely banned on Google Ads and is not served to users on the platform. Throughout the past 3 days, the startup attempted to contact Google to receive clarification on the removal of Ethereum-related advertisements. On January 12th, a representative of the startup said that Google did not respond to the firm and wrote, "We've been using Google Ads for the past 6 months to help us get more visibility for our smart contract auditing services, and we've noticed a strange change in the last few days. It seems that Google completely blacklisted Ethereum as a keyword. Any of the keywords that contain Ethereum in our campaigns are no longer showing ads as of January 9th. And before we continue, just briefly about Google being unresponsive here. Unfortunately, Google is such a behemoth in the advertising space and in some of the software solutions they provide and some of the websites that they run, that they have built themselves up into the position where they don't have to offer good customer services. And as someone with a YouTube channel who has faced issues with stuff like monetization before, and YouTube of course is owned by Google, I have been in a situation where it's incredibly, incredibly hard to contact anyone. And nowadays there even seem to be, sometimes when you try to contact a person at Google, to just get a quick answer and a quick explanation for why you ran into a problem, when it's not clear to you what is going on, and that is very much what they're trying to do here. You either reach nobody, or you get a stock response, or in some cases it even appears that you're talking to an AI chatbot, and that is not being declared, that what you're talking to is a bot. I was watching somebody, a YouTuber with over 1 million subscribers, so someone who you would think would be able to contact YouTube. I was with him one day and he ran into a monetization issue. And he tried to contact a YouTube representative and he was put into a chat window. No mention of him possibly talking to a bot. But the person he was talking to responded back within fractions of seconds, way faster than any human being could possibly respond, and didn't seem to accurately understand his issues and his questions, and instead provided what very much read like stock responses, but under the guise of a real human being on the other end. So Google is terribly unresponsive to its customers, even the ones who are very important, who are spending a lot of money. And unfortunately, this seems to be the latest case in that, where Google is simply not even responding for comment. And even journalists sometimes have issues getting comments out of Google. Like, Google is so big, and Google really has an attitude where they're so big, no one gets to talk to them, no one gets to critique them, no one gets to... essentially, what Google does is Google's own thing, and no one else gets to talk about them about it. And it's very worrying because they're also becoming a massive monopoly and they're trying to take some things into their own hands. But this is what it's represented in day-to-day life. Because they're so big. Because who else are you going to use? You want your ads on Google, you can't use anyone else. They're just incredibly unresponsive and treating their customers terribly. But let's get back to the article because I was ranting again. It is likely that the company has not blacklisted Ethereum or cryptocurrency advertisements in general, but is moving slowly in enabling advertisements because of the large number of scams and fraudulent operations it saw in the cryptocurrency sector in early 2018. In September 2018, Google announced the resumption of cryptocurrency-related advertisements on its platform after banning them in March of the same year. In March, when the search engine giant initially imposed a blanket ban on cryptocurrency ads, Google executive Scott Spencer said, "We don't have a crystal ball to know where the future is going to go with cryptocurrencies, but we've seen enough consumer harm or potential for consumer harm that it's an area that we want to approach with extreme caution." And this is pretty much all we need to read here. It appears that, at least in part, Google seems to have returned to its stance from earlier last year, a stance that a lot of us had hoped they had finally gotten over, where for months there were no crypto ads on Google at all. Now it appears that Ethereum ads do not get through. Now they do have some valid reasons for putting close scrutiny to crypto ads, because they need to make sure that no scams, that no Ponzi schemes, that no fraudulent websites are being advertised. But right now it looks like they're just outright banning everything, and that there might not even be a human looking at these things. And that is very troubling because it's just another step into the automatization of all of that. And once again, it appears you don't really get a chance to complain or to even get a full picture of the situation. Because we don't know if they're banning Ethereum. We don't know. There's no official statement. We just have reports that apparently anything that mentions Ethereum is not getting through. And this is what I was talking about earlier. They just don't share information. You don't get to know what's going on because Google doesn't think they need to tell anyone, because they think they're special, because they're so big and so important, and we're just normal little people. And that is how just terrible Google is. Okay, one last story for the day. If you remember, a couple days ago, Ethereum Classic faced a 51% attack just a week after getting under fire for there being a potential for attacks such as this, and dealing with it in the worst possible way. But now, apparently, 100,000 of the money that was created in that attack, that was double spent, has been returned to an exchange, mysteriously. The Ethereum Classic 51% attacker has reportedly returned $100,000 to cryptocurrency exchange Gate.io, a post on the official exchange's blog reports on January 12th. The company further noted that they tried contacting the attacker but didn't get any reply until now, and that they do not know the reason why the funds have been returned. The exchange declared, "If the attacker didn't run for profit, he might be a white hat hacker who wanted to remind people the risks in blockchain consensus and hashing power security." A white hat hacker is a hacker with a strong professional ethic who uses his hacking abilities for good and not for personal gain. The jargon file, a staple of hacker culture, further explains. The term white hat stands for an ally or friendly security specialist. Essentially, think of this as someone who uses the same skills as a malicious hacker, but instead of using them to, say, make money or attack websites, they try to use them for social good by showing vulnerabilities, by helping increase the security of people. On January 9th, Gate.io published their analysis of the 51% attack, finding that a total of 54,200 ETC in total worth $271,000 at the time, had been transferred during the time of the alleged hack. Major crypto exchange Coinbase separately stated on January 8th that the total amount of money involved in the deep chain reorganization included over $1.1 million worth of crypto. Gate.io notes that the current hash rate of the Ethereum Classic network is low, and that it is still possible to rent enough computing power for another 51% attack. Accordingly, the number of required confirmations for Ethereum Classic deposits has been raised to 4,000 on Gate.io to safeguard against more such attacks. 4,000 required confirmations! That is the highest number I've ever seen. As Cointelegraph recently reported in a dedicated follow-up, Coinbase had identified a deep chain reorganization of the ETC blockchain that involves a double spend on Saturday, January 5th. By the evening of January 7th, the company had taken stock of multiple double spends on the network. Charlie Lee, the founder of major altcoin Litecoin, recently declared that by definition a decentralized cryptocurrency must be susceptible to 51% attacks. Well, yes, declaring that is essentially shooting yourself in the foot because you're admitting that decentralization for its own sake is not necessarily a good thing. So yeah, there's a big danger associated with that, especially for smaller projects such as this. And yeah, But anyway, we are seeing here a very unusual situation, and it's very much a developing story, so we're going to hear more about this in the future. Now, clearly this 100,000 is not all the money that was moved in this attack, so I don't quite buy that this was allegedly a white hat hacker, but I also have no idea why that money was returned. You'd assume if it was a white hat, he would have returned all of it. He probably would have also just done one double spend and would have alerted people to the fact that he did it himself rather than waiting for exchanges to figure this out by themselves. So I don't buy the theory that this was a white hat hacker, but it is completely weird that a portion of the money apparently was returned. I have no idea honestly what is going on here. I just wanted to let you guys know that this bizarre situation is going on. And with that, I'm going to end this video. I'm sorry it was such a ranty video. I think I ranted in every single one of these topics, but we just have such weird stories today. As always, thanks for watching. All the links in the description as well as ways to support the channel. If you like my content, I would really appreciate if you just left a like, left a comment. It really helps me be discovered and helps my channel grow. And I will be back with another video tomorrow.